What's up, y'all? Today we're gonna look at the fundamentals of brewing pour-over coffee at home. Now, there's a bunch of different types of pour-over devices you can use, but they're really all more similar than they are different. So these techniques can be applied to basically any pour-over device. To get it going, you're gonna take the device of your choosing, pop the filter in it, and preheat the brewer. This is gonna rinse the filter. It's also gonna warm up the brewer and the cup. Dump your rinse water out and add your coffee to the brewer. We're gonna make 1 cup of coffee, and we're gonna use a 1:16 brew ratio. So for this brew, I'm using 18 grams of coffee and 288 grams of water. You can vary the amount of coffee to water you want to use depending on how much coffee you want to brew, but try to stick in between that 1:15 to 1:17 brew ratios. If you like your coffee a little bit stronger and you like it really heavy, you may want to lean towards a 1:15 brew ratio. If you like it really light and open, you might want to lean towards a 1:17. I'm gonna go 1:16 right in the middle. I've got another video that talks all about brew ratios if you want to check that out also. Once we add the coffee to the brewer, we're gonna give it a little bit of a shake, and this just helps flatten out the bed to make it easier to get even water coverage over it. Tear out your scale, make sure you have a timer handy, and we're gonna get ready to get this going. We're gonna start with water that's just off the boil, so you wanna get it boiling and then let it settle to where it's not bubbling or boiling anymore, and then use that. We're gonna start with the bloom phase, so start your timer and add just enough water to cover the entire coffee bed and let it sit for about 30 seconds. The bloom phase is just gonna help the coffee drive off a little bit of gas and set us up to have a more even extraction throughout the rest of the pour-over cycle. Once that 30 seconds is up, we're gonna add the remaining water in several small stages. So you're gonna take your kettle, pour right in the center of the coffee, and start a slow spiraling motion out to the edge. You don't wanna touch the edge of the brewer because you could get water that slides by without touching any coffee, but you wanna get as close as you can. And what you wanna do with these slow concentric circles is watch for that color change. Wherever you're pouring, you're gonna see the color of the coffee bed change from a darker brown to a progressively lighter brown. Use this color change as an indicator of how even you're pouring. You wanna make sure that the water is interacting with as much of the coffee bed as possible to get the most even extraction, and this color change is a good indicator of where to focus your pour. So you'll fill the brewer up about halfway, it'll start to slowly drain down, and as it slowly starts to drain down, go in for a second stage. Again, starting in the center, spiraling outward, making sure to pay even attention to all of the coffee in the coffee bed to get that even extraction, and use that color change as a reference. You also want to make sure you're pouring at a relatively consistent speed. You don't want to pour the first stage really slowly and then pour the second stage really aggressively. Pour-overs can be a little bit finicky, so we want to do everything we can to maximize consistency, including how fast the water is coming out of the kettle. So settle into a flow rate that feels comfortable to you, that you can reproduce every time. When you reach your target weight, you can stop pouring, but don't stop your timer until you see the last little bit of water disappear from the coffee bed. For a single cup like this, you should be right around the 3-minute mark. Now in the pour-over game, the more coffee that you brew, the longer your target brew time should take. So while this 1 cup takes about 3 minutes, if I were to brew 2 cups, it might take 4.5 minutes or so. Another thing to note with pour-over coffee is that the more coffee you brew, the coarser the grind setting you're gonna want to achieve your target brew time. Using the proper grind setting is one of the major keys to getting delicious coffee, and that's really hard to communicate. So what you're gonna do is let your flow rate and your taste tell you which way your grind needs to go. So if we're gonna brew 1 cup of coffee, and we know that that should happen in about 3 minutes, if we brew that 1 cup and from start to finish, it takes 4 or 5 minutes, we need to coarsen up the grind to allow the water to permeate through the coffee faster. On the flip side, if we brew that 1 cup of coffee and it takes, say, 1.5 to 2 minutes, we're gonna need to tighten up the grind, make it finer to slow down that extraction and give the water a little bit more time to interact with the coffee. So getting that time frame right will put you in the ballpark, but to get it totally dialed in, you really need to rely on your taste buds. So let's say you hit that 3-minute brew time on the head, go ahead and taste your coffee and taste for extraction byproducts. If your coffee tastes bitter or dry or astringent, your grind setting is probably too fine. You want to coarsen it up to kill some of those flavors. On the flip side, if your coffee tastes tart or sour, your grind setting's probably too coarse. You're gonna wanna make it a little bit finer to bring some balance back into that cup. And again, you wanna isolate as many variables as possible, so if you do make a grind adjustment, you wanna pay close attention to the way you're pouring, and you wanna pour at that exact same flow rate every time so that you know that the change that you're tasting comes from the adjustments that you're making and not just really sloppy technique. When your brew is finished, give it a quick stir to de-stratify it and make sure the drinking experience is good from start to finish, and go ahead and enjoy your coffee. All right, y'all, I hope this helps you get started on the wonderful world of brewing coffee at home. Remember, 1:15 to 1:17 brew ratio. Today we use 18 grams of coffee to 288 grams of water for 1 cup. Just enough water to cover the coffee bed, let it bloom for 30 seconds. Add the remaining water in slow, steady stages, making sure to get even coverage and pay attention to how fast you're pouring. Make it as consistent as possible. Aim for that 3-minute brew cycle if you're brewing 1 cup of coffee. If you're off, adjust the grind to get in the sweet spot. And once you're in the sweet spot, use your taste buds to dial it in exactly how you want it. All right, y'all, stay dialed and I will catch you on the flip side. Peace.